Hey, gang. I found an article on one of my favored MMORPGs, Final Fantasy XIV, that I want to talk a little bit about and how kind of the make a comment on the game, but also talk a little bit about how this is an issue that we're seeing across basically all fantasy building right now in games. So, just to point you to kind of what I was seeing, so there's an article that came out pointing out how the president, um, Takashi Kiryu, over at Square Enix, was like, "Hey, we understand that people are leaving Dawn Trail, which is their latest expansion, and the players that are coming back and currently playing are pretty unhappy with the state of the game." And he talks about how, like, oh, well, it'll be okay. Like Yoshi P, which is their executive producer, is gonna be he's stretched a little thin right now, and he'll just be back there in a little bit. And I'll link this below if you want to read the whole thing. I feel like it's a lot of kind of fluff just to kind of make it last a little longer from just this tiny statement there. But because I have a lot of friends that play Final Fantasy XIV, it's basically in two camps. One camp, which is the folks that kind of just log in every day because the kind of game they like to play is an MMO, and there's just so much to do in 14 that they just log in and do like older content or crafting or like whatever it may be. And then there's the other group that actually comes in to make maybe raid, play the game, play the story. I fall into that camp. However, with the latest expansion, I it's it's pretty bad, to put it mildly. I think a couple of people that did a great job at explaining why it's in such a bad state. I watched a couple of videos, one from Zepla and another from Lucy Pyre. I'll put those below if you want to just like listen to kind of how bad things have gotten, because it goes over some of the more intensive issues with the writing, which is just very poor across the whole expansion. I heard some people like Grums was complaining because like there was some voice actor for one of the characters that was trans, and like honestly, that doesn't matter. If you guys watch Dragon Ball Z in Japanese, you'd know that Goku was voiced by a female. It's really just whatever fits the whatever the creators want for that particular voice of the character. So it's just that didn't matter. The big issue with this whole expansion was just the writing was terrible. For those of you that don't follow kind of the expansion structure of Final Fantasy XIV, game came out terrible, really really awful. Got re-released, went through this huge arc between A Realm Reborn, ended with Endwalker, which was the final expansion, and it had its ups and downs in the story, but it finished this huge arc that it had been building, and they're trying to start this new bigger story arc so that they can have content basically for the next 10 years of the game. Problem is, I don't think they have a good vision for like what they want. With the latest expansion, one of the key issues with the whole writing was they shifted away from having you, the main character, as the focus, and they were like, we want you to focus on this person over here that's a cat girl, but not one of the good cat girls, one of the bad cat girls, where it's like, she was a bad cat girl. It was a very bad story. They tried to focus on this person, very uninteresting, very poorly written. But even if they were written better, like the whole basis of the story was basically really bad. Now, I came in, my MMO growing up was Final Fantasy XI. That flag behind me is the flag of the Republic of Bastok. It's one of the starting nations. I put a lot of time into that game. And one of the races that was eventually introduced into Final Fantasy XI was the Mammal Jaw. They got introduced into the with Treasures of Aht-Urgan. And one of the interesting things about that particular expansion was that there was this main city called Aht-Urgan, and occasionally the Beastmen tribes that were the big baddies of the game would, they had this like meter that would grow, and they'd eventually invade the town. And if you didn't kill them all and you lost the battle, they would kidnap members of the town, and you'd have to go into basically enemy territory to break them out. It was really, really cool idea. I really liked that. And in that, all of them were bad. There was no, oh, well, there's some friendly ones, and like that's that. It's like this is an evil group that you have to defeat. And with this latest expansion, they followed this trend that we see in a lot of modern writing where they said, oh, yeah, let's take this group, the Mammal Jaw, but actually they're nice and they're good people. And yeah, there's just some bad ones out there. And I think we've all seen this from a lot of modern writers where they're just like, they see these certain fantasy races and their immediate response is, oh, they're just misunderstood. And the writers are idiots. Like, there's no other way to put it. They have dumbed down so much of fantasy and sci-fi in the past number of years where it was more important for them to take these random, weird, perceived notions of like racism or classism, and they were like, we need to destroy that in this fantasy universe. There can't be conflict in my fantasy universe. And Final Fantasy XIV under Square Enix, Square Enix is big into pushing DEI stuff right now, where they're trying to write stories for a global audience, which means they're writing a story for no one. And in this case, they wrote an entire story where instead of saying, we have this very strong group of people that are just bad, that want to conquer and dominate, instead they were like, oh no, they're actually really peaceful. And you know, the king is actually one of these Mammal Jaw, and like he adopted this little cat girl. Oh, it's such a great story. It was really, really terrible all around. I had friends that would keep being like, oh, well, some people just don't like it. And it's just like, no, this is empirically a bad story that did not do a good job at making any kind of conflict. And I have no interest in this entire area and its history because it was so poorly put together. And I would wager to bet that a lot of people are feeling the same way, because with Final Fantasy XIV, it's in this really bad spot with the story. And when Square Enix is here saying, oh, well, don't worry, if we just bring back this executive producer, if you have, which in this case, I think it's a Creative Business Unit 3, this huge organization, and you're saying the only reason this organization is able to perform and produce anything of value is because one person is there, that shows that you do not have a good, healthy organization. There's one thing that I like to point at with bigger organizations where I talk about the bus factor. The bus factor is how many people have to get hit by a bus before everything falls apart. So if you have a team of like 20 people and the only reason they're able to produce is because there's only one person that has the authority to say things can get done or not get done, you have a bus factor of one. One person can get hit by a bus before things fall apart. On the other hand, if you have a small team of like 4 or 5 people and they all know how to do each other's job, then of that 5 people, your bus factor's 5. The entire team would have to get hit all at once walking through a crosswalk for that particular unit to fall apart. You want to keep that number as high as possible at the various levels of your organization, because if nothing else, like someone, like they could quit. Like maybe someone has something going on. Worst case, they perish. I've worked at a number of places where someone has like had a major health incident or has died, and that's terrible. That is the worst way to lose someone. It's not like, oh yeah, I took an offer somewhere else. It's like, hey, this person, they died in a traffic accident, and that's devastating. But from an organizational perspective, any of those things happening, whether it be an act of God or whether it be something that happened with them taking an offer elsewhere, that should not grind your teams to a halt. And that's what's going on right now with Square Enix with this particular unit. You've got Final Fantasy XIV where they're saying, oh, well, the issue is this one guy. This one guy wasn't there, and that's why it was bad. I would argue that one guy, Yoshi P, probably did not do his job in ensuring that, and it's not even his job, it's because hundreds of people there. So to say, oh, well, this one person, and that's the reason why, honestly, there's a structural issue with that whole group where something, like there are multiple things that are wrong that need to be fixed. And I don't know how this can really recover for them. I think we've all looked at a lot of MMOs and the way that they've kind of evolved over time. Like I'm seeing some clip out of World of Warcraft where it's just like eye-rollingly bad. I saw from Stuttering Craig some picture of let me pull it up here. This wizard in like a floating wheelchair, and these are the kinds of people that are making a lot of these decisions for writing at these companies, and it's bad. Like, it's all around super bad. And one could say like, oh, bring in better writers, but if you're a good writer and you're given the chance to work on something more interesting or another expansion for some video game, you're probably not going to accept the later one because they're not going to pay you some huge salary. They're not going to be like, oh, you're a good writer. We know you're a good writer. Here's like $1 million a year to come in and fix our story. They're going to pay you whatever your senior writer rate is at that place, which is probably not that good. So you're going to probably pick the place where you have more creative freedom instead of worrying about writing a story that has to pass by your DEI team to say like, oh, well, this doesn't fit a global audience. Oh, you put in male or female. That's very offensive. Gosh, it's a mess. It's really sad to see. But that's all I want to talk about. I just want to rant about like one of my more favored MMOs. If you guys have any thoughts on 14 and like if you play it, I'd like to hear what you all think as well, just from like my audience to be like, do I have other people that are also like, yeah, this is a train wreck, or if they're just like, nah, I quit that like years ago. Just totally get it. But that's it for today. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you all again in a future video. Farewell.